How's it going, man? Oh, there we are.
Hey
How's
guys,
it going?
we are live. We are live. I'm Jeff with eBay Addicts, and I got a brand new guest for you guys, Dilly with Dalton. How are you doing?
Fantastic, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, awesome, man. I've had people been sending me messages on Instagram, and they're saying, "Get dealing with Dalton on the live stream." It's a do what you got to do, track this guy down, and get him on the program. So that's what we're doing today. So go ahead and introduce yourself first of all. Tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and tell them what it is that you do.
Cool. So, my name's Dalton. I live in Orlando, Florida. I'm a full-time shoe reseller, 90% used shoes coming from thrift stores, flea markets, those kind of places. And I do about 10,000 in sales per month. Obviously scaling up each month, trying to break through past records. So happy to be here.
Okay, awesome. We're live. I just want to give a shout out to Ginger Marvin is in the chat. Hey, Ginger Marvin. If you guys didn't get a chance to check it out, I had Ginger Marvin was our guest on a couple days ago, and their channel's been blowing up. I think they're at like 8,000 subscribers. So if you get a chance, go by and check them out. So today our guest is dealing with Dalton. I wanted to say hey real quick to Carter P. He says, hey, what's up, Jeff and Dalton? So if you guys have questions for our guests, go ahead and drop it in the chat. So dealing with Dalton, man, talk to me, bro. Tell me, I don't know if you watch my channel or you're familiar here. We got to go kind of into a little bit of your backstory, because right now you're officially a full-time reseller. You're selling shoes. You're doing about 10 grand a month in gross sales, give or take, as a shoe seller. Tell us a little bit about your story, how you got started into reselling, and how you got from where you first got started to now that being your full-time gig. So tell us the backstory of how all this happened.
Cool. So before I was a full-time reseller, I've always worked in the restaurant industry, mainly as a server bartender. One of my past jobs about 2 years ago now, I happened to get paired up with someone who's now one of my best friends. Overheard him talking during work about when he got off, he was going to go to Ross and flip some like football cleats onto eBay. And that just triggered something in my head. I was like, maybe I should go with him and check it out, see if he's actually making money or not. And sure enough, that kind of led us into the garage selling and thrift store scene, kind of making a little extra money on the side together. And then I quickly got hooked and decided to start doing it on my own. Mainly was selling. I was selling really anything and everything at the time, mainly on eBay. Started making good money on the side of my serving income. And eventually, after a few months of that, got fired from my job and decided, maybe I might as well try going full time. That quickly led me into realizing that I needed to get some systems in place, and I wasn't ready to be a full-time reseller yet. So after a couple months of trying that, got a part-time job as a server. And in the 3-month window that I worked at that second job, really figured out what I needed to do to be ready to become a full-time seller. And after I got some things lined out, finally made my way into selling strictly shoes and made my way into becoming a full-time seller.
Yeah, I was going to say, I used to work in the restaurant industry at one time. I was a pizza delivery driver. And even though you would hustle and make pretty good money, guys, if you guys don't know, just being a pizza delivery driver, between the money you would make in tips and the money that you would make in your paycheck, you can make $400 in 2 days just on a Saturday, Sunday delivering pizzas. But then you would look, and then once you start making money reselling, you're like, wait a minute, I had to work 10 hours driving a car delivering pizza, where I just made this money in my sleep on eBay, selling stuff on eBay. And you're like, okay, one of them I was working 10 hours a day. One of them I was asleep and I woke up and made this money. It was on my PayPal card. So I definitely can relate. And most of these restaurant jobs, they're not high paying jobs. We're talking, minimum wage, or some of them $10, $12, $15 an hour jobs. When you're making $150, $200 profit a day, it's easy to kind of get hooked pretty quickly.
I will say, for me, I had a really good job. I worked at a resort hotel, and I was making really good money. But for me personally, it was more of like a scheduling thing. Like some days I woke up and I dreaded. I did not want to go to work for nothing. I'd take a pay cut to work on my own. So for me, it's the schedule, 100%.
Okay, cool. Let's say hello real quick to Yard Sales and Dreams is here. Says, hey, Jeff and Dalton. I will give a shout out here to Philly Picker is here. He says, what's up, Jeff, Dalton, and everybody. And I was laughing because a buddy Drew is here, Profit Monster. So I was kind of making that kind of like a little emoji because the first time that I saw dealing with Dalton was in one of your reels on Instagram, and you had some kind of drone going or something in the background, and he had this crazy dance. So I was just like, I don't know if this guy is serious or I don't know what the deal is. So I went there and checked out your YouTube channel and your Instagram page, and that's the first time that I saw you. And I wanted to say hey to Carter P. Yard Sales and Dreams says you stick strictly to shoes. And I wanted to say hey real quick to LKL Graphics Keith. So you just mainly, I mean, that's like 90% of what you sell, correct? Is shoes, right?
100%. I don't remember the last time I shipped anything other than shoes. So I've found, I mean, for example, I went sourcing a couple weeks ago and found this Tiffany bottle in one of my shoes. It's worth like $40 if I just list it, but I don't want to list it because I don't know. I'm 100% shoes. I don't like selling anything else.
Okay. But when you first got started in reselling, you were kind of just, getting whatever you could get your hands on, right?
Yeah. Anything and everything, you got to make a buck.
All right. Drew says, Dalton sells shoes to spend his money on Marvel DVDs. So, hey, I mean, that might work too. So talk to me a little bit about what's been going on in your world. I was actually at your live stream that you were on with Hammock, and you were talking about how you were trying to get some money together to buy a house soon. So what's been going on with you lately? I know you have a storage unit where you store your eBay stuff, but like what's been going on as far as the house search? Are you going to be buying a house? Are you looking for a single family home, like a condo, a townhouse? Tell us how that's been going.
Yeah, so that's my lease in my apartment is up in like next June. There's a lot that's been thrown at me since I said that. That's definitely one of my goals. I'm also looking to open a business with a friend of mine. So next year is either going to be, it just kind of depends. I'm definitely saving for a house. I want to get into a house because right now I'm crammed in a little apartment. I have a storage unit. I'd like to bring my inventory to the same place that I am. But it's also, there's a lot of factors that go into play. I'm still aiming to try to buy a house next year, but if the business opportunity presents itself, I'm probably going to open a business with my friend because I mean, that's just who I am. I'd rather do something like that than take the safe route and buy a house. But it's definitely a goal of mine. I'm still saving. We're going to get there, but I don't know what path I'm going to be going down next year.
Oh, well, the reason why I was bringing it up because you guys were talking about possibly doing some house hacking and maybe having a roommate or rent out some of the rooms of your house to save money. So that's why I was bringing it up because I thought it was a good idea to maybe kind of cut some of your expenses. So 100%. So you're going to be kind of looking at houses. You maybe and possibly down the road opening up a business on the side. And so you have your YouTube channel and you're reselling. So tell me a little bit about you got started in reselling, you're selling a little bit of everything, and now you sell shoes. What are like some really hot selling brands right now of shoes that we should be on the lookout for? Like it's Q4 now. There's a lot of people online buying stuff. What's been hot selling items for you lately?
Right. So I obviously get this question a lot. It's easy to go down like the super BOLO path and say like Hoka's and On Clouds and that kind of stuff. But in reality, you're not going to be finding those at every thrift store that you go to. My top 5 brands right now are Nike, Vans, Adidas, Converse, and I think Puma is number 5 right now. So definitely stick to the brands that you see. Like when you're going out, just look at what people are wearing. If you see 50 people wearing a pair of Vans, that's what's selling right now. So stick to the brands that you see frequently. And for me, the top 5 again are Nike, Adidas, Vans, Converse, and Puma. Yeah,
I hear that Nike is usually a good seller year round. And so now do you usually sell used shoes or you go out and buy new shoes? Because there's some people that just mainly go to Ross and Marshall's, Burlington Coat Factory, and they're looking for maybe, a pair of cleats for $20 and try to sell them for $100. But you sell a lot of used shoes as well. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm definitely 90 to 95% used shoes. Especially in the area that I'm in, the competition at Ross and the Nike outlet and those kind of places is much higher than it is at thrift stores. I mean, that's the cool thing to do. If you go look on YouTube, those are the videos that have, hundreds of thousands of views. If you look at someone that's like me selling used shoes, they're not getting near as many views. It's not as cool, but that's where I'm seeing the bulk of my profit coming from, because at the thrift store, I can buy a pair of shoes for $10, sell them for $30 after shipping and fees, and I tripled my money. if you're going into Ross, I'm lucky to find a pair of Air Max for $50 that I can sell for hopefully 100. So I've got much more upfront investment for hopefully doubling my money, because with the Ross and Burlington scene, I mean, a double up is what people are looking for, and those are more rare. So definitely see more success at thrift stores than I do at those places. So I focus my effort where I'm seeing the most success. So definitely 90 to 95% of my sales are coming from used shoes.
Yeah, it seems to get people's attention when they're like, hey, I found these at Ross or Marshalls, or I went to the Nike clearance outlet and I found these cool Nike shoes. But like you said, if you're paying $50 and you're trying to sell them for $100, you know, versus if you took that same $50 and went to a thrift store, and let's say you bought 5 pair of shoes for $10 a piece, now you've got your money on 5 different horses instead of putting $50 on red or black and hoping that one pair of shoes sells. So you're spreading you're spreading your risk out a little bit, right?
Yeah, it's also a sustainability issue. I mean, I can go out almost any given day of the week to thrift stores and have a successful day, at least a semi-successful day, 50 pairs of shoes or more. If I'm going to a Ross or a Marshalls or Burlington, I can source them all day long, and it's so hit and miss. I mean, you never know if you're going to have a good day or a bad day. So it's, in my eyes, it's not a very sustainable business model, at least in the beginning. I know a lot of guys have success with it, but in my experience, I can go sourcing Ross and find nothing, and then the next day I'll find 20 pairs. But at the thrift store, it's a lot more consistent.
All right, cool. Let me give a shout out here to a few people in the chat. I wanted to say hey to Profit Monsters is in the chat. Ginger Marvin says you can ship it to me. I think she was talking about that little bottle that you had earlier. Yard Sales and Dreams says, well, that's disciplined. I buy a little bit of everything. I wanted to say hey to Thrifting and Flipping. Hey, man, I saw your new video drop today. I didn't have time to watch it, but I did see you dropped a new video today. I want to give a shout out to Utah Bought and Gone. Zach is here, says house hacking is amazing. I did it for 7 years. I wanted to say hey to Paul, the Flippin' Sports guy, is here. I wanted to say hey to LKL Graphics. And Regina is here. Hey, Regina, if you guys didn't get a chance to check out Regina's show on Wednesday night, the Hump Day Hangout, you should check it out. So we have a question here from Yard Sales and Dreams, says, what is the best shoe selling story? And our buddy Renzi just stopped by. We were just talking about you. What's up, Renzi? And Ella is here, save here first. So do you have any great shoe selling stories you can tell us about, where maybe you found a pair of shoes for $20 and they sold for $500? Do you have any great selling stories or anything you can tell us about?
Yeah, so I'll do two. One to hit on the great selling one. My best flip is, for those of you who don't know the brand, Alden. They make dress shoes, super high end. They retail like 600 plus. I found a pair in Tulsa, Oklahoma for $20 at a thrift store, and within a couple of weeks, I had them sold for $450 to a buyer in France. But I definitely think that this next story it can't be topped, and I'm never going to top this next story. I was still working a job, so I wasn't a full-time reseller at the time, but I had gotten into shoes. And for those of you who don't know, I grew up in Coffeyville, Kansas. It's a super small town out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm at work, and I get an eBay notification on my phone. I made a sale, great. Always a good feeling. But then I pull it up, and I'm looking at the sale information, and the address is the house that I grew up in as a kid. So the person that bought these shoes from me lived in the house that I lived in until like middle school. I immediately text my parents. I'm like, do you know this person? They're like, I've never heard of him in my life. So just the odds of that were crazy. I was messaging them. They sent me pictures of the house because they remodeled the inside.
That's super creepy, bro. Like, it sounds like you were having a bad dream and you couldn't wake up or something. So the people bought these shoes lived in the house that you grew up in?
Yeah. I mean, I'd never even sold a pair of shoes to the town that I grew up in. And then the one time I get it from Coffeyville, Kansas, they were in the house that I literally lived in.
Oh, wow. That's so crazy, dude. That's crazy. That's like one of those things from the Twilight Zone or something, bro.
100%. 100%.
Hey, I want to give a shout out here real quick to the Prison to Profit. I think today's his birthday. So everybody in the chat, give Dante Prison to Profit happy birthday in the chat. I wanted to say hey to Ginger Marvin. Ella is in the chat. Save here first. Yard Sales and Dreams. Flippy McFlipperson is here. He just stopped by to hang out with us. He says, "Hey Jeff and Dalton, I hope you had a good time at the meetup." And I wanted to say hey to Regina. and health and money is here. So if you have questions for our guests, go ahead and drop it in the chat. So talk to me a little bit about, I want to talk about your storage space, because that's one thing that people kind of overlook being a reseller is they think like, okay, I have all this inventory. I want to scale and grow my business to 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 items. And then they're like, okay, they only have so much room in my bedroom, only have so much room in my closet, only have so much room in my basement or attic. Well, here in Florida, we really don't have basements, but you only have so much room to store your merchandise. So talk to me a little bit about what your strategy is. I've heard that you have a storage unit. Tell us a little bit about what your strategy is as far as, holding your merchandise and how you keep it all kind of organized.
Yeah. So I definitely recommend sticking in your house or wherever you're at as long as possible. Look into bins. I went with the shoe rack method. So I had at my last apartment before I got into a storage unit, I had my hallway just lined with shoe racks. Like it's not attractive for guests when they're coming in, but I did what I had to do. I did that until I just completely ran out of room. And then I went to a storage unit. I definitely recommend paying up a little bit because I ship out of my storage unit. I'm in a 10 foot by 10 foot. I made sure to get a climate controlled one that's inside because I spend so much time in there. I don't want to be sweating in the Florida heat. So I stayed with the shoe racks in the storage unit. And right now I've got, let me think, 1, 2, 3. I've got 7 shoe racks right now that are 13 high, and they each fit 8 shoes per shelf. So I can hold a little over 700 pairs of shoes in my 10 by 10 storage unit, as well as a shipping station. And I still have room for another shelf. So that's always an option. If you don't need that much space, if you're just slowly growing out of your house, some places offer the 5 by 10. So maybe you move into a 5 by 5 storage unit and then work your way up to a 10 by 10. I'll eventually outgrow it. If I'm not in a house by then, I'll get a 20 by 10. So it's just one of the many options to store your inventory.
Well, I like that you said that your place is climate controlled, because I have all my stuff in a shed out back. And man, I'm telling you, like, let's say if I don't pull orders for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday comes and I'm pulling orders or Sunday night, like here in Florida, it's like warm year round. So man, the heat and humidity of you being outside, pulling orders, packing, shipping, boxing stuff up to the customers, dude, you could be out there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and you're just drenched, covered in sweat, bro. So and I definitely have been there. Yeah.
Some different types of shoes don't do well in that temperature. That's can cause dry rot in some of the shoes. So that's one thing to look out for. I mean, if your storage unit's outside in the heat, it can cause some shoes to start to disintegrate. So definitely look for something that's climate controlled if you can.
Right. Now, talk to me real quick. I wanted to touch on real quick about you made a video on your YouTube channel. I don't know, it's been fairly recent. You were talking about how you go about keeping things organized and sorted in your place. So that way, whenever you have something that's sold, you're not running around like a chicken with your head cut off looking for these sold items. So can you talk to me a little bit about how you organize? Do you have a bin system, or how do you go about organizing these shoes so oh, hey, these are Nike Air Force Ones, or these are Pumas or Adidas, and right where to go find them and pull them.
Right. So it's a super simple method that I use. I have a Google spreadsheet that I use that I put the SKU number for each pair of shoe in. So when I'm photographing the shoes, I have these paper clips that have a shelf, as well as the position on the shelf on the paper clip, and I'll line up 10 or 20 of them, or however many I'm photographing, and I'll list them in my storage unit in my spreadsheet as I'm taking the photographs. And then when I get to my storage unit, I put them in the exact spot on the shelf. I don't organize by brand or by size. It's just whatever clothespin is on the shoes, it's going in that position on the shelf. And then when that item sells, I have that SKU on each individual listing. So it's just pulling up the listing, figuring out what the SKU is, pulling it off the shelf. And then as for accounting for it in my spreadsheet as the sale, there's just you can push Control H on your keyboard and it pops directly into the spreadsheet where it's at. I can enter the sale, I can delete the SKU, and then use that clothespin on another pair of shoes in the future. Okay,
cool. I want to give a shout out here to Prison to Profit. Thrifting and Flipping is here. I wanted to say hey to Yard Sales and Dreams. Says, we were watching Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 15 minutes, and got an eBay offer on my phone. And I was a Muncie Indian resident, sent chills up my spine. Flippy McFlipperson is here, says, hey, Dalton, do you ship from your storage unit or do you have them pick up your inventory, and do you ship from home?
Yeah, so I have a portable electric generator at my storage unit that powers my my printer and my scale. So, and then I have all my boxes and shipping supplies at my storage unit. So I do package everything up and ship from my storage unit. And then I'm not sure if he was asking this, but I take my packages directly to the post office. I live on the 3rd floor of an apartment, so I don't really feel comfortable having the postal worker going up 3 flights of stairs, getting all my packages and then taking it down. So I go ahead and drive it to the post office myself.
Okay. Speaking of Prisoner Profit, he wants to know next 5 years goals. So over the next 5 years from now, let's say we're the year 2027 or something. Where do you see yourself in the year? And I know it sounds crazy. It's like some mystical person reaching over a crystal ball or something. But like, where do you see yourself down the road, 3, 4 years, 5 years down the road, with your reselling business and your YouTube channel? What is it like? If someone came to you and said, "Okay, Dalton, what do you want to do in 5 years from now?" Like you talked about, you wanting to start a business, you're wanting to buy a house soon. What is it? What do you see yourself in the future? What would you really like to do?
So I really need to I need to put some thought into this question and get an answer start answering this question, because I get asked this a lot, but I don't really function like that. I think that because I mean, the last time I was asked this, I said, if you would have told me 5 years ago that I was selling used shoes online full time, I would have called you crazy. And I fully agree with that statement. 5 years from now, I have no idea what I'm going to be doing. I feel like when you start thinking about it's nice to have these 5-10 year goals. But when you put too much thought into them, it just becomes an excuse to, I have time. Like 5 years, when you think about it right now, is a long time. So I can get all these crazy goals in place and hope to hit them in 5 years. But the way I function is like, what can I do this week? What can I do this month? This week, I want to get 100 pairs of shoes listed. I know the steps I need to take right now to grow my YouTube, to grow my Instagram, to start selling more shoes. Like if I can go source more this week and list more this week, that's going to put me in a position to hit these long-term goals and be able to pivot whenever I want to, maybe get into another business. I really don't have a 5-year goal. I like the direction that my life is heading right now. So we'll figure it out in 5 years, I guess.
I understand. Yeah. I try to give myself, 4 or 5 goals for the year that I'm in. And then once I get those things crossed off my list, then I'll sit down and say, okay, the next year, what would I like to do? And then kind of stair step and make a little bit of progress every year. You don't have to, what do they say? Rome wasn't built in a day, So I definitely can relate. So I wanted to talk to you about your sourcing route. Where do you go sourcing at? And can you give us some tips, tricks, advice? Because this thing is, here in Florida, there's a lot of resellers. It's not like Florida's a big place. It's the 3rd most populated state in the country, but there's a lot of resellers down here. And sometimes you'll hit up a yard sale or a thrift store and it's kind of been picked over already, but you still find good stuff to flip to resell. So kind of tell us your sourcing strategy. Do you have a route? Is there certain places that that you hit up every week? Do you also, I've seen you hit up a couple flea markets as well, right?
Yep. So I'm hitting up the same thrift stores every week. I'm not really looking. I mean, if I have time to check out something that I haven't seen before, I'll pop in. But really, I've got routes set up in Tampa. I've got a route set up in Orlando, and each week I'm just deciding which one I want to hit. So as the flea market, every opportunity that I have to go to the flea market, usually do well there. As for finding more inventory, that I have a couple directions I can go with this, and that the first one obviously is just not get discouraged. If you go into a thrift store and it's picked over, go to the next one. If it's picked over too, go to the next one. There's been times where I'm doing a whole full day of sourcing and I've got 12 stops lined out. And the first 3 stops, I'm finding 3 pairs of shoes, 2 pairs of shoes, 1 pair of shoes. And then that 4th or 5th stop, I find 26 pairs. So this competition, these resellers, they can't be in every store at every time of the day. And plus these stores are putting inventory out all day, every day. Yeah. So just don't give up and be consistent. That's what I'd. Right. This other direction I wanted to go with this is to stop only looking up. I know a lot of people only look up comps on eBay. Start looking up comps on Poshmark and Mercari, because some shoes that you're seeing in the thrift store are being left behind by some of these resellers because they only know to look up comps on eBay. Some of these shoes like Puma, like Skechers, like Sperry's, they only sell good on Poshmark. I can't tell you how many times I've found a pair of Skechers that people sell brand new on eBay for $25 that I've sold used on Poshmark for $30. So there's different marketplaces for each platform. So start getting more knowledge of these different platforms, and that'll broaden the different brands, the different styles that you're picking up when you're outsourcing.
Good. I got a couple of questions for you. First, I wanted to talk about your profit margin. So when you go to look at a pair of shoes, what kind of profit margins are you looking for? Are you trying to buy a pair of shoes for $5 and sell them for $50? Are we looking for a pair of shoes for, like you said maybe around $7, $8, and you're going to try to sell them for $30, $35, $40? Talk about that. And also, I wanted to see if there's any kind of way that you can get stuff wholesale order, like a wholesale lot, because a lot of times when you buy stuff in bundle where you're buying 50, 100, 200, 500 items in bulk, you somehow can get a discount and get this items cheaper instead of just going to the thrift store and say, okay, I came home with 3 items today and I was at the thrift store for an hour. So those are 2 things I wanted to touch on real quick.
Yep. So first, for my profit margins, if I went into my spreadsheet and I averaged out all the sales of the year, I think my average buy cost would be, I think right now from on the year, I'm at like $9.50, but that's including like the new shoes that I bought at Ross. Sometimes I source at Plato's and I'm paying 20 to 50 pairs, $50 per pair. But on average this whole year, I think my average buy cost is like $9.50. And then if you average out my sale price after shipping and fees, I'm getting back $30. So on average, I'm tripling my money. And that kind of goes back to the last question where I said you need to start picking up brands like Skechers and Sperry's. I've really started focusing on finding these brands that I can find for $5 to $7 at the thrift store consistently that might not sell for a lot of money, but I can find a bunch of them. So if I'm finding a bunch of these Skechers that I can pick up for $5 to $7 and sell for $20 to $25 after shipping and fees, that's great in my book. So then I'm not only focused on trying to find the home runs, the shoes that I can find for $10 to $15 that sell for $50 to $60, because those are the ones that your typical reseller is going to be picking up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I call them like highlight reels where it's like, hey, I picked these shoes up for this item up for $5 and it sold for $50. But the majority of people make their money on bread and butter items. It doesn't make like the Sports Center episode or whatever of top 10 sales, but it's just bread and butter items that you sell every day to pay the bills. So I like your business model where, like we talked about earlier, you can buy 5 used shoes instead of buying 1 pair of shoes for $50. You can buy 5 used pair of shoes and turn around and resell them. What kind of sell-through rate do you typically have on these particular shoes? Like, how long do you usually keep them in your inventory before they sell? Because, on eBay, you can look up sales for the past 90 days. But how do you do? I haven't sold on Poshmark. So how do you go about looking up like sold comps? How do you look at the sell-through rate and say, okay, I bought these shoes, let's say for $8, and I want to triple my money and sell them and make $25, $30 profit or whatever on these shoes? How do you look at your sell-through rate on Poshmark?
I don't think you can, honestly. I don't know. When I'm looking up, at this point, I've sold so many of these shoes over and over again that I'm rarely looking up comps unless I'm coming across a brand that I am unaware of. That has its pros and cons, of course. Sometimes I pick up shoes that I probably should have left behind. But in my eyes, the time that I'm spending looking up comps. Now, I'm not recommending this to someone that's just getting started. Obviously, you need to look up comps and learn what brands sell. But at this point in my reselling career, I'd rather not sit there and look up double check, triple check comps on every single platform in each individual store. I'd rather spend that time hitting an extra 2 to 3 thrift stores that day. So I don't know if there's a way to look up the sell-through rate on Poshmark. So when I'm looking up comps on Poshmark, I'm really just looking to see if that shoe's selling. So if I'm going to the solds on Poshmark and I see several of them selling, I'm going to go ahead and pick that one up. I don't know if there's a way to see exactly how many of them are listed, just because Poshmark works a little different than eBay.
Okay, now I wanted to touch on real quick. I heard you say on another live stream that you were possibly looking at wanting to scale your business up and maybe hire employees in the future. Are you still doing that? Are you still considering that? Or are you just going to be a one-man band? Like, what are you planning on doing as far as you possibly want to scale your business up in the future? Do you have a certain quota of a certain goal? Say, I want to get 1,000 items listed, or what is your goals as far as trying to grow and scale your reselling business?
Yeah. So after talking to other resellers that have hired, I think that the first thing I'm going to look to outsource is the photography, just because it's the simplest thing. Anybody can do it. It's easy to monitor as far as like how much work the employees are getting done. Whereas if I hired somebody to clean, it's kind of hard to tell because some shoes, are going to take a lot longer to clean than some that you might just need to wipe the price off the bottom. But as for the timeline on that, I'm not too sure. Like I said, I've got a lot on my plate. I probably need to hire sooner than later. But right now, I think my goal is to increase. I think I heard somebody, maybe it was, I think it was Rally Roots actually, said that they hired after they started hitting $7,000 net profit per month. So I'm thinking that's probably going to be my number as well. I'm trying to scale up just a little bit more. Probably get a little bit. I'm probably going to get a separate bank account to start putting money into, because when you hire somebody, making payroll is really important because they're relying on you for their income and to provide for their family. So I don't want to hire somebody too quick and then fail and not be able to pay them. So I really want to get some cash in the bank.
I don't know if you watched my show before, but this is a segment where I'm going to put you on the hot seat. Are you ready? You ready for this? I got to put you on the hot seat here. So now this is the question that people want to know. How did things go? Because you'll see, I'm not sponsored. I'm not affiliated. I don't have any affiliate links. I just wanted to know how things went with the experiment with you and Hammock. How did it go? Did you do well or not? Because here in Florida recently, because we both live in Florida, and recently they voted last year to raise minimum wage to $15 an hour. So when you were talking earlier about possibly hiring employees to grow and scale your business, that's the first thing that's sticking in my mind. Like, hey, minimum wage is going to gradually be over $15 an hour. And anybody that's worth their salt, they don't want minimum wage. They're going to probably want 18, 20 bucks an hour. And even if you hired somebody locally in Florida to come in, let's say part-time, 20 hours a week to come in and take photographs and help you list items and help you ship, kind of like Callie does for Rally Roots. Like, how did that experiment go? Give us your honest opinion of what your results were when you tried Hammock or you tried apps as far as kind of help you list more items. How did that go for you?
So I definitely recommend, if you are doing volume, that you need to find a way to cross list better. I definitely think that statement's true. I used to spend forever every night. My goal was to get 10 listings done a day, and that would take probably an hour to list between eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari. Since I started using cross-listing service, I'm able to get 30 listings done in that same hour because I'm only posting to eBay and then having them cross-listed onto Poshmark, Mercari. And then since it was such a convenience factor, I started listing on Facebook Marketplace as well. So that is definitely one of the easiest ways to free up your time, is to outsource cross-listing, because you're not hiring a full-time employee. It's a lot cheaper than hiring an actual employee. And it is one of the things that us as resellers spend the majority of our time on, is cross-listing. So if you're in you have the ability to outsource that, I highly recommend it.
Well, the thing is, everybody runs into the same problem as you only have so many hours in a day. So, I mean, if you're spending time listing, then you can't be, outsourcing. If you're spending time sourcing, then you can't be, pulling orders, because it's kind of like a revolving door almost. Like you're pulling orders, you're shipping orders, then you're going out sourcing, then you're listing the items that you found, and then the stuff that's sold, you're shipping it out again. So it's like this revolving big circle. And so if you can kind of outsource some of your labor costs or some of your expenses, like I said, with Hammock or List Perfectly or one of these type of platforms, I just wanted to know how it was for your personal experience. Would you recommend that people try it out, or was it not worth the money?
Hammock, particularly?
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I'm debating on that. If you've noticed, I was putting Hammock on my story every week or so, in the not too distant past. But I haven't really been posting about it a lot because I have ran into some issues. I'm seeing, if you go into their Facebook page, there's a lot of people having problems. I know a lot of people are having problems with the app, and I just haven't been pushing it too much. I've been experimenting with List Perfectly as well. I really like List Perfectly. There's obviously no issues that are very common with them, but the big thing with Hammock that I've run into is my Poshmark account has been shut down twice. And obviously it's because they got people in India logging into my account. The first one lasted 3 days, and then the second one was actually 3 days ago. So luckily that one I got my Poshmark back up in 24 hours, but that's definitely the biggest problem with Hammock is since they're overseas. And then the same thing with eBay. I sometimes have to change my eBay password like every week, every couple weeks. So there's definitely issues.
We're unbiased here. I'm not biased one way or the other. None of my shows are sponsored, so we're unbiased here on my channel. So that's why I wanted to ask your personal opinion. I want to give a shout out here real quick to the Flippin' Sports Guy, Prison of Profit, to smash the like button. Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate you. I hope you had a good birthday. And Regina is here. I want to give a shout out to Regina. I want to give a shout out to Yard Sales and Dreams. And we had a question from Southtown Fine says, what is your favorite platform to sell on, or is your highest selling platform? So because you talked about Poshmark earlier, what platform is it that you probably generate the most sales from?
It's by far Poshmark. And then that's also my favorite platform to sell on. It's just the simplest platform to use, in my opinion. You don't have to, I know Mercari is the same way, but you don't have to worry about returns after 3 days. The buyer has 3 days to try the shoes on. First off, they can't return them if they don't fit. So the buyers have to know their shoe size. So no returns for shoes not fitting, no returns period after 3 days. You don't have to worry about purchasing shipping. They email you a shipping label right to your email. And plus I just understand the Poshmark buyer a little better than the other platforms. That's kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about, Skechers will sell brand new on eBay 25, 30 used on Poshmark, because the people on Poshmark are more impulse buying, if that's the right word to use, because they're, Poshmark kind of markets themselves as a social media, I guess. So people are just kind of scrolling on there and finding things that they didn't know they wanted, versus the typical eBay customer is the kind of person that's going on eBay and trying to find the lowest price, and then they're going on other platforms to see if they can find it for cheaper. So I just like the Poshmark buyer community a little better than the other platforms as well.
All right, now give us some drop. You got to drop some knowledge. This is a segment where you got to drop some knowledge in our audience to help them out. Now, if I'm someone who's getting started, or maybe I'm doing reselling part-time and I want to grow and scale my business, what would be like your top 2 or 3 pieces of advice you would have to help for this person if they're saying, hey, I'm doing reselling right now, or I'm getting started. Maybe I'm doing $1,000, $2,000 a month. I would like to scale my business where I can do $10,000 a month right now. That would really help me. Maybe they're in a situation like you were, where you just get fired or you get laid off, or just something out of the clear blue happens and you kind of knocks you back on your heels a little bit. What advice do you have for that person? Or they're like, hey, I have a similar story to Dalton. I was interested in, reselling or reselling shoes, like you heard about. Tell us like some piece of advice that you can drop on our audience to help them out.
Yeah. So 100% my mind goes directly to creating a budget. You need to figure out what your monthly expenses are. You need to figure out which ones that you can, if you don't want to cut any of them out, great, but figure out what your monthly expenses are. If you can lower any of those expenses, do that. The way that I wrote my budget out is I'd take my monthly expenses, I'd divide them by 4. To find out how much I need to make each week to pay my bills and to live. My expenses included, gas and groceries, all of that, everything that I needed to live. I need to figure out my number that I need to hit each week and then write that down. And then every Monday, I would do weekly payouts from Poshmark, Mercari, and eBay. And every Monday I'd cash them out and I'd write down how much money is being transferred from these accounts into my bank account. Then I'd subtract my expenses. And then that number that I'm left over with is how much that I can spend on inventory. So that number, I would take that out and I would go source more inventory until I got that number down to 0. And then the next week I would start back over. I'd write down how much is coming in, how much is going out, how much I have left to spend on inventory. And if you do that and you find ways to decrease your expenses and you get more knowledgeable about the brands that you're sourcing, you're getting better, you're creating systems, you're doing everything that you need to do to scale your business. If you just keep track of the money coming in and the money coming out and making sure that you're not spending more each month than you are making, you're setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. I mean, my channel is not a personal finance channel, but anytime if you can sit down and look at your budget every month and find out ways you can reduce your expenses. Like one of the ways I went from paying $200 a month with Sprint and I went to switch to T-Mobile and now my cell phone bill is like $50 a month. Or maybe, in 2019, 2020, I was paying $300 a month car payments. You pay that car payment off, and now you no longer have the $300 a month car payment. And then you went from paying full coverage insurance to maybe liability only, and maybe that saves you another $75, $80, $100 a month. So because when you're able to reduce, your expenses, that's after tax dollars that you're reducing your expenses. So it's almost like you're reducing your expenses by double almost, because you don't have that extra. What is that sword of Damocles hanging over your head every month? So if you can reduce your expenses, definitely reinvesting capital back in your business is really important. I wanted to talk to you real quick about your sourcing routine. How many days a week do you typically go sourcing, and what type of advice can you give us when we're at some of these places? So let's say if I'm a bird on your shoulder, I walked into the thrift store, we're at the shoe section. What is it that I need to be looking for, and what do I need to stay away from? Go ahead.
So as for the sourcing, I right now I'm doing about 2 days a week. I'm not, I don't hold myself to that. It's really just whenever I get the shoes home, get them cleaned and get them listed, I'm going sourcing the next day. So right now that's looking like 2 days a week. As for creating a sourcing route, don't be afraid to cut certain thrift stores out of that sourcing route. There's some thrift stores that I've been to in the past that I found, a home run, but it's not consistent. And that home run was like a small chance. That's the only thing I found at that thrift store. I'd rather go into a thrift store and find 25 bread and butter items than go into a thrift store and find one home run. So find the stores that you can go into and can consistently find several bread and butter items and just create the most efficient route that you can. As for when you're in the actual thrift store, really just stay away from, in my opinion, if you're getting into a niche and you're only selling shoes, really stay away from shoes that are a little too worn, because I talked about this in a recent YouTube video. If you have a store that sells one product, there's going to be people that come in and search your store, and maybe that person's going to find 10 pairs of shoes that they're interested in. But they decide on buying the 7th pair that they put into their bundle or whatever. But they only looked through the first 3 that they put in, and they're like, wow, this guy has great inventory. Everything's in great condition. But the one that they decided to buy had a flaw, but they didn't think to look through the entire listing because everything else in your closet looked good. So just because a pair of shoes, that you can make money on, if you're in a niche, I recommend just leaving those behind, sticking to higher quality inventory versus trying to make that quick buck with the damaged inventory.
All right. Now I got one more question, or I'm going to put you on the spot and then we're going to let you go. Okay. Now I hope you're ready for this. How do you determine when you're ready to leave your full-time job and become a full-time reseller? Because I'm not saying you're an expert of this area, but you had a full-time job, you were doing reselling on the side. It takes a while, not only to build up capital, not only to kind of build up connections and have a route where you're sourcing, but also to build up your inventory in your store. What would you say, like if someone is in this situation and they're like, man, I really don't like I'm done working this dead-end job. Right now, that's like one of the highest percentage of people that have just up and quit their jobs ever. Like there's such a labor shortage, it's ridiculous. So how does someone know when they're ready to become a full-time reseller, and what would be like some things you would recommend to them because maybe you've been in their shoes before. So talk to me and let me know. Give me like a couple of tips or tricks or a piece of advice or pointers where someone knows, hey, I'm ready to jump off the plank, so to speak. I'm ready to jump off the cliff, and I'm ready to become a full-time reseller. What would you have to tell them? What piece of advice can you give them?
So first thing I want to say, if you actually hate the job that you're working at right now, instead of focusing on becoming a full-time reseller, see if you can. Obviously, you need to scale up your reselling to this point, but see if instead of just quitting, that they'll let you go down to part-time and just slowly phase it out. I see a lot of people that have a full-time job that their main goal is to quit that job. They want to put in their 2-week notice, but maybe you just need to take a step back, go part-time, give yourself that safety net that maybe this reselling thing doesn't work out, so you can just go back to being full-time at the job you had. But really see if going part-time scales your business up. And then if if it does and you're hitting another wall and you can't scale because you don't have time, that's when you're ready to quit your job. I'd almost pretend, back to the budget I said, just pretend that your job income does not exist. See if you can pay your bills, pay yourself, live comfortably on just your reselling expenses. If that's true, great. It's time to quit your job. But and if your job won't let you go part-time, go ahead and quit that job and find a serving job. There's hundreds of restaurants that need help right now, and you will make good money working part-time. They might only want you working on weekends. So you'll have the whole week to yourself to do your sourcing and do your reselling thing. So my main advice is to just take it a little slower than you expect, because I know it's fun to post on Instagram that you quit your job, but sometimes it's not always the right move. Maybe you just need to instead of working 40 hours a week, bump it down to 30, bump it down to 20, and slowly ease your way into reselling instead of just. I
kind of like your strategy. Well, let's say if you're working at a restaurant, you're doing a job, maybe you were working 5 days, then you go down to 4 days. And maybe you do that for a couple months. Then you go down to 3 days. Then maybe down to 2 days, and you just slowly stair step it down. And instead of just being like, the house is on fire, let everybody panic, I'm putting my 2 weeks notice in and I'm leaving right now. But hey, let me give a shout out here real quick to Philly Picker is in the chat. He said, Dalton, did Macari take the return back on the Nike foam posset?
Yeah, so I just put it in last night. So it's going to take, and today's Friday, so it might take the weekend, but I'm 100% positive that Mercari is going to accept the return. I've had to return shoes for being inauthentic on Mercari before, and it's not an issue. So.
All right. And I want to give a shout out here to Zombie Bargain Hunter. I want to give a shout out to Paul the Flippin' Sports Guy, Prison to Profit. Regina was in the chat. Southtown Finds, Yard Sales and Dreams was here hanging out with us. Thrift and Flip. Keep doing your thing, man. Keep hustling. And I want to give a shout out to Flippy McFlipperson and anybody else in the chat that I missed. Keith, Ella, Save Here First. Anybody else in the chat I missed. Thank you, everybody, for coming on and hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Do you have any words of wisdom you can leave us with, Dalton? And we'll let you go, buddy.
Now, this is the real hot seat. Words of wisdom. I don't know. I think we covered everything. Just don't get discouraged. Like I said earlier in the video, if you're not having luck right now with thrifting, or even if your sales are down, just keep at. We all know what the steps we need to take. Keep listing, keep sourcing. Eventually, you're going to find the honey hole if you're having trouble sourcing, or eventually the sales are going to start rolling in. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, guys, my words of wisdom is if you're having trouble in a particular area, if you're having an issue with whatever it is, shipping, listing, storage, reach out to other people in the community. There's so many people here that's ready to help you out with whatever you need. If you just say, hey, I'm having issues with customer return. Even if you're just having a bad day and needing someone to vent to, there's plenty of people in the community, people like me and Dalton, people like Zombie Bargain Hunter, people like Drew Profit Monsters, that, you can just hit us up on Instagram and just say, hey, these are the issues that I'm having with scaling my business, or I'm dealing with customer returns, whatever it is. We've been there before. So just reach out if you're having a bad day, and don't just put your head down and put your tail between your legs and give up. We've all had good days and bad days. There's plenty of people in the community willing to help. Tell everybody where they can go by and check you out at on YouTube and Instagram. I have all your links listed down below. We'll let them know where they can go by and check you out at.
Yep. So it should be on the screen right now. I go by Dealing with Dalton on all platforms, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you can find me. It's Dealing with Dalton.
All right, guys. I will catch you guys tomorrow afternoon, 4 p.m. Eastern. I have a brand new guest coming on, and he's a young kid. He actually lives here in Tampa, another Florida kid. He's a 21-year-old kid, and he's a bookseller. He makes a full-time living. He bought this one book and sold it for $800. So if you like book sales, if you want to learn more about how this kid's able to do this while he's still going to college full-time and reselling on the side, I will see you guys tomorrow with Brandon Roles. I hope I didn't mispronounce his name improperly. But I'll see you then. Until then, you guys have a great weekend, and we will catch you guys later. Bye, everybody.
See ya.